All right, so Claudia Bellofatto's here. So I did this at the beginning where we go like, how do you two know each other? And I was just thinking about this. I thought this was hilarious the other day where I networked with you when I was looking for my first job. And I think you had just started at your first station. And I was just in this super professional mindset. This is always how I network. And I literally addressed the email to you, Miss Bellofatto. And you are like probably like what not even probably a year older than me. And I was just thinking about that, how funny that is, because that's just how I did it with everyone. And like
Yep.
being in a newsroom now, I would never do that ever again, because I almost did that with my anchor and reporter who've been there the longest. I really almost called them like Miss Rodriguez and Miss Saunders, and I would
Yep.
still be like getting crap for that if I did. So I was gonna ask you, like, was that like the most flattering thing that's ever happened in your life, or were you just like, I am not that old, like what is going on?
Well, the weirdest thing is once I got this job, I think you were like the third person within that first month of me starting that reached out and were like super professional, which is great that kids in college or like coming out of college are super formal like that. Unfortunately, I never was. I'd be like, hey, what's up, Claudia? Like, do you want to have a phone call later this week? So it's good that you guys are super professional, but you were like the third person that first month. For some reason, I was like bombarded with people. Hey, do you want to have a phone call and like we can talk about this? I have to do it for class. I was like, yeah, sure. I'm a month into it, so it's kind of new for me too, but it was cool. It made me definitely feel like more adultish and made me feel like I was actually working, because it doesn't hit you. I'm sure you're a few months into it now, but
Mhm.
sometimes you step back and you're like, oh my God, I'm actually working in my first market. Like this isn't for a college class anymore. It's weird. Even for me, I'm 6, 7 months into it and it hasn't fully hit me yet for some reason, but it's been cool.
It's super funny because it's just like, if someone called that to me now, I'd be like, that is like Mr. Karalexis, like
You're
that is
like,
so
sorry,
weird.
what?
And then it's funny because you have the age range where it's like you have people that have like 10, 15 years, and that actually makes sense. But I'm just like, oh my, now that
Yeah.
I'm into it, and it's like a little like very informal, and it's just like, oh my
Yeah.
lord, like I can't believe like that's
That's
how I
why I
went
always
about
go
it.
with first name, just like play it safe. Or I'll like see how they end their emails. And if they're like Bob or like Mr. something, I'm like, okay, now I know.
Yeah, exactly. You know how it goes after that.
Yeah.
So it's so funny. So let's do some industry talk. I want to start with that.
Yeah.
Told you that before. And so I think we're in the same boat where it's so funny because I feel like even like job hunting, you kind of had to phrase it like this, and you still do now, where it's like we both are in news right now, and like I think want to do sports long term, and I think like when you're like coming across like that at first, people kind of some people who are like super like newsy think
Newsy,
it's
yeah.
they think that's a bad thing. So like I feel like you and I both, I know you chose to do news first, had
Mhm.
sports offers. I was not in that position, but I actually like accepted the fact that that was how it was going to be, and I actually am enjoying news, and I don't think that's like a bad thing to say that like you like doing news and you still want to do like sports next, because it's how like a lot of this stuff is. But I wanted to talk a little bit more to you about that, like why when you were looking, like you ultimately decided to do news, and like especially getting in when you did like a month or so before everything
Yeah.
hit, like that must have been just super wild.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in the same boat of where I never thought I'd say I like news, but I actually like it a lot more than I thought I would. Going into college, my freshman year, I had joined the sports radio station, and it was kind of like a frat, honestly. I was the only girl there, but they would make all the freshmen walk like through campus too. I lived in the sketchiest like area. I had to walk through campus, get there at 4 a.m., like write my scripts. And unfortunately, I only lasted like 2 weeks just because it was really intimidating. And the sports world is, especially for a girl, and I know
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that as a cop out either, but like that kind of was at the point where I was only 19 too. So everything was a little intimidating and a lot for me. So I ended up getting into news. Um, Basically did that for the majority of my college career. And then senior year, I just realized like sports came more naturally to me in
Mm-hmm.
terms of, when you're on camera, you'll feel more natural with a story than something else. So when it comes to politics, that's not my thing.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
feel super rigid, and that's really newsy. Like you talk about the word newsy when I'm doing
Like
politics.
hard news.
Exactly. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, hard news isn't my thing. So then, senior year comes, I'm taking a sports class and I'm taking a news class. I was anchoring news and sports every week. And it was like night and day for me. And so I literally graduated saying, I don't care what offer I get from local news. I'm not going into local news. I'm not doing news. I'm sticking to sports. And I had that mentality for a while. I was reporting and hosting for the Nationals minor league team up in upstate after I graduated. I was hosting Syracuse football and basketball games. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm on the sports path. I'm doing well. And then I got a little nervous seeing everyone around me getting into their first markets and already getting on air, getting those reps every day. And, I was only hosting home games and it wasn't on camera necessarily. I was doing a little stuff with the ACC, but it wasn't something everyday consistent, getting those reps, as you know how important that is now.
Right, exactly.
We've talked about how much you've improved, like just within a few weeks, definitely over a few months. So for me, that was kind of the biggest push when I was talking to people. I talked to a lot of people in sports. People who are, high up in Fox Sports right now or ESPN, ACC Network, whatever, they all said, honestly, when it comes down to it, getting the reps is the most important thing, being comfortable on camera. That should be your main goal for the first job. So I had a sports anchor position opening, a sports director, which it was in Tri-Cities, Washington, I think. With the smaller markets, not like you're covering any pro teams, so it's probably less stressful or less daunting than you would think. But for my first job, I wanted to kind of the stereotypical first market feel. It's like I wanted it, but at the same time I didn't. I wanted to get those reps in, but at the same time, we know it's brutal. It's a lot of work. But if I was doing sports right now, I wouldn't be getting on camera as much. I wouldn't be getting those reps. So my contract when my contract is up, it's definitely something I have to consider. And I think I do want to get back into sports just because of that comfortable feeling. And because like when I do research for sports, when I'm going on a podcast or I'm going to write an article or something in the sports world, it's so much more exciting to me. It's just something that I have more drive for. And I think when it came down to it, it was just what opportunity is going to give me the experience that's going to help me in the long run. And it was news. And I'm so glad I took it. And I, like I said, I'm liking it more than I thought I would, but I think it came down to reps for me, which makes it hard though when you're not following sports like a sports reporter. I'm
exactly.
Should I watch the VP debate or should I watch, with all the sports going on right now too? It's like trying to keep up with all that, staying on top of news, having your 5 story pitches for the next day. It's a lot. And so I think one of the biggest things for me has been trying to stick with sports and keep up to date. Because you can't just go on shows or host shows and not be up to date with that stuff. That's been one of the most stressful things. But you get that, right? You're doing news and sports or just news?
Yeah, so I'm doing news. We do news 5 days a week. So all daytime. We don't really do like a daytime, dayside, night side. So we just have like 9:30 to 5:30, and then like if there's stuff at night, like just overtime. And so I did news, and like there was no sports when I got to West Virginia. So and I was fine with it, and I was like worried about it, but I knew because I told you I was in like radio and I was recruiting for radio until like March, and I was just like, this industry just isn't existing right now. And I kind of like flipped the switch and had to pick up everything on the fly in 3 months and was able to get in somewhere. And I was like, all right, I just am going to enjoy this because I know that I need to learn anyway. So it was more learning. And then I actually like it a lot more than I thought I would, because you can dig and you can find some stuff that's like super unique and super cool. Also, like you, I'm not as much into hard news. Like a lot of our news, like some of our news team room talks a lot of politics, which is like great. Like you can do that, but I just like, I'm still going to like read sports articles and like watch sports when I get the chance. Like they're talking politics. I'm watching the Braves in the newsroom today. It's just a different dynamic of it, but like getting to do high school football is really all there is right now. And so like, I guess there's like soccer and stuff too, but everyone has the chance to do football. So I've been like, we go out on Fridays and I'll shoot a game and I'll go and I'll do a stand up, and I want to do a different type of stand up every single week. And at some point kind of find a way to get to games early enough to be able to have time and maybe find a way to do a unique package or two, which I think being in news has kind of helped me put me in that mindset where it's like, all right, I can like take a unique angle this way. Yeah. And I think that's actually worked out like so far. And we come back and we cut highlights, and I get to write too for our weekend sports anchor who came in like a month after me. He's a goon. And so he's always like doing funny stuff on air. And so I'm like, I'm like, that's kind of me too. So I'm like, all right, yes, when I can write for him,
That's
it's so
perfect.
funny. And I wrote for him.
More voice.
Yeah, exactly. And the first 2 times I wrote for our sports director, but I wrote for him the 3rd time. And it was, I mean, I played it like 3 times because I just like, this guy is so funny the way he read it and this the way it came out. But it's also like with news, and we talked about this like the other day, with having to do 3 stories. I mean, 3 for me, like 2 for you, but it probably just depends. Having to do that every day, having to kind of have a really hard deadline, and like you have to pretty much be able to do a good package in like 45, 50 minutes. And it just seems like to me that that's the stuff that you don't get on the sports side. And like for the first market, again, like what you said, it's I think that's the most important thing, because like I've again like talked to people, and it's like people can still jump. You can still jump to a good market for sports, like from news. It's like real. It's just about the presence and like the stories you can tell. So I definitely think that it's just hard to do working Monday through Friday though, which I've also realized. Like having weekends off is great, but that's also like takes the opportunity away. But like again, I'm really enjoying it so far, and I've actually, like I was telling you, like kind of the growth was like exponential, and like now it's kind of gone like to this part, which is fine. That's like how it's gonna go. But I think all in all, like it's been better than I thought. I just kind of wish that some weeks are just so slow. It's brutal.
Dude, I'm telling you, like I tweeted today, are the weeks getting longer?
Oh,
I was like, wait, today's not Friday. On Tuesday,
right.
I was like, Thursday, right? Everyone's like, no, what are you talking about? It's like, it's a grind. It's definitely a grind. But hey, we're the first market. You got to get through this, earn our tough skin, you know, and then
exactly. Pay your dues is what you hear all the time.
We'll have our own show someday.
I'm dead. So I wanted to talk to you also about like how, because I jumped in early June. So it was like, I guess like kind of the heart of the pandemic, but you like, how was it for you kind of like getting in like your first month, and then all of a sudden, like, especially being in Florida, where it was like everything hits, and then like you're still like a month into it, I'm sure still like adjusting and learning, and then like bang, it's a pandemic.
Yeah, I think that in terms of work, I worked in-house for like a week and a half, I think. And then they're like, okay, go work from home. And this is how you're going to access the computer. And you still have to go in the field, start doing Zoom and all these things. So that was really stressful for me at first. And then I think I just kind of had the mindset of like, I don't have a choice and everyone else is doing it. So I might as well, you know, make the best of it. And I think it's kind of gives us an upper hand almost, because when we go to our next market, like what haven't we experienced at this point?
Right.
Like in our first market, we are covering some insane things that will be in history books years from now. And not a lot of people can say that they did that in their first job. Maybe something they found 30 years into their career, but we're doing it right now, which made it difficult, but I think it's going to pay off in the long run. In terms of life itself, I think that was weird. You know, I always said I grew up in Boston. I went to school in New York. If I go somewhere warm, I'll be happy. Like, I don't care where it is. Just send me somewhere with palm trees. And I get here and there's no beach and it's just humid as hell and it rains all the time. So it's like you have this grandiose idea of what life's going to be like after college and your first market. And it's, I don't know, it threw me for a loop, I guess, but it threw everyone else for a loop with the pandemic. So it was just a matter of adjusting. And I feel like I'm definitely well adjusted with my job, especially with our job, especially you get to know the town and the city and everyone so quickly because you're working with everyone and you're driving around literally all day, every day.
Right.
So I think that definitely helped me. If I had like a desk job or something and just didn't get out much, it'd be a lot harder. But knowing everyone basically in every industry at this point has definitely helped.
Well, it's funny because it's the same, like, I think it's the same for me. Like, I came in and luckily I didn't have to work from home. Like, I think they kind of brought everyone back, like, right before because I started on the same day as 2 other meteorologists. So it's kind of like a wave coming. And they brought everyone back, like, right before that. And we've been lucky where, like, when I got here, West Virginia had, like, still, like, barely any cases. It's just like one of the lowest states in the country. But then naturally, I mean, there's just no way it's not going to increase a little bit. And so like we've been fine and everything, but it is just crazy starting out. And like I haven't shook anyone's hand. Like I'm shaking anyone's hand. It's so like I'll elbow bump. It's like, oh, like nice to meet you. It's just so awkward. I'm like, wow, like this is crazy. Dude, stuff like that.
I had to interview Governor DeSantis, like Florida's governor, at one of the football games. He was there, and I wanted to like introduce myself so bad, and it was just so awkward. I was like, "Hi," I was like, "I'm Claudia." I was like, "Nice to meet you." I was like, "Okay, this is weird." You know what the craziest thing is though, too? Like Florida almost like doesn't really give a shit. It's kind of crazy. Like yeah, let's just like open up bars. Let's whatever. I guess it kind of depends on the county, but Governor DeSantis, when he was there, straight up not wearing a mask, like throwing the football around with the kids. No one else was wearing a mask. He wasn't reprimanding anyone. So that's been weird too, just seeing how like different. We won't get into politics because that's not our strong suit.
Exactly.
Yeah, no one can talk about that, but it's been interesting to see just how everyone handles the situation. But that I'll leave it at that in terms of
No, I agree. And like I think our governor is kind of like the same way. And I interviewed him for the first time last week at this huge event for this opening of this highway that they've been working on for like 20 plus years. It's crazy. And I think he put out like a mask mandate in buildings early July. And so it's just been funny to see like it's not like mandatory. Like there's no way to like track every single person and like get them in trouble. But kind of seeing like who all like goes with it and who doesn't. And just sometimes it makes shooting stories tough too, because there was a time a couple of weeks ago where this county that I like know the person who's like the social person for schools and they had like a confirmed case, like their first one. And I wanted to do a story like, oh, like how did this go? And I was able to get like a couple of interviews, but like when I was like, is there any chance I'll be able to like go in the school? Cause it was like during the 3 days where they closed it down and did like a desanitizing. And I think it was over the weekend. So the person was like not exposed to a ton of other people, but they still had to, there's a word for it. I contact trace. They had to contact trace everyone. But they ended up, this was on like over the weekend, they caught the confirmed case and they brought him back on Thursday. And I was down there on Tuesday and I was like, can I get into school? And they said like, there's just no way to make that happen. So it's like, this could have been like an awesome story, but just like my B-roll was just like the outside of the school. And that was kind of like all I had to work with.
Yeah, there's like no in between. It's either like we don't really give a shit or don't even come within like 10 feet of me. It's just working around that.
It's so funny. So I wanted to, let's hit one more thing on industry. And I guess like for you, this is so funny. So I met someone today from the Gray Station in Charleston. And he said that I was just talking to him about like the industry. He's a Syracuse guy too. Oh, what was his name? Brendan Tierney, maybe?
Tierney.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. He's a news guy in Charleston, West Virginia.
Yeah, he did the student station we had. Like
I'm sure he did. And so he was super cool. And I was just like talking to him about just stuff because like it was his first market. So I was like, okay, wow, you're starting in Charleston. Because he's like a straight news guy. Awesome. I know. Yeah. So it was awesome talking to him. But he was talking about Gray and he was like saying like that he loves Gray and he like he's I think a year plus. So I was just kind of asking him like, have you like thought about your jump or anything like that? He was like, just mentioned a couple stations, but he said he really wanted to stay in Gray. And I know that your station is in Gray too. And I was wondering like how much you can say and like how you've enjoyed Gray so far. And like, if you kind of have been thinking, like, I really want to like stay within this corporation, because you hear a lot of more bad than good in terms of like the Grays and then companies like of the same variety.
Right. No, that was one of the biggest kind of hurdles I had to jump when I was graduating, because we actually had we had Nexstar, we had Gray, Sinclair, I forget.
And like Quincy, yeah.
Yeah, and Quincy, right, yeah. So I actually met with reps from all of the, what would you even call them? I almost just said divisions.
Corporations, I think.
They're not like conferences.
Yeah.
All the corporations. They all came and like I did interviews with each of them. Mm-hmm. And I got offers from all of them. And I think it was a matter of, I don't know, I'm very laid back when it comes to, like, obviously when it comes to an interview, I'm going to be formal and all that, but the conversation was very easy with the Gray rep. And I didn't know if it was just because him and I, related and we talked sports, and it was just like a very natural conversation between us. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if it was just him, but I ended up making phone calls to people who had worked here, who are now like my best friends.
Right, exactly how it goes.
But people who work at other stations within Gray, and it seemed like everyone kind of had that same positive attitude. Like everyone really pushes each other. Everyone wants the best for each other, which sounds like kind of corny, and it is, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I came here, I flew out here like for the interview, and I met the GM and I met my boss, and I went around and met everyone, and it was just really welcoming. And I can't say that's for every Gray Station, but from what I know, that's what it kind of seems like. And they want to keep you within Gray, and you know, the upper guys, I can't be specific with names, but you know, the bigger guys above me, my bosses, I guess you could say, they've been intent on, you know, wanting to keep people, they understand this is a building block, you know,
exactly.
This is my first market, but they want to keep people within the company, and it kind of feels like a family, you know, we call it the Gray family. So I don't know, just because I haven't been in any other organization or whatever, so I can't speak to that, but so far Gray's been cool. Yeah.
It's so funny because like you hear about our station is interesting because ours is family owned. So like it's not even, so it's WAY, but we're a ABC affiliate, but it's Thomas Broadcasting. I think it's literally like family owned. So we're not under, like the other two stations are like one's a Nexstar and one's a Quincy.
Yeah.
And we're like family owned, which is interesting because like when the time comes to jump, you kind of have like it's not like you don't have an option to like go, but I feel like the corporations really want to like keep you in.
100%.
And so like there's a lot of like to look at just in terms of kind of being able to like, all right, like do I want to like look for like a Nexstar or a Gray or Quincy or kind of how it goes. So I always like hearing about like how people like, because I've heard, I'm not going to throw names out there, but I've heard some things that aren't like great about some of them and some that are better.
There's horror stories out there. I mean, the good thing is it's not like we're signing our lives away. So say signed to a station, or a station could be amazing, and maybe the parent, what did you call it?
I call it a corporation. I don't know if that's the term
I can't like put a word to it. But maybe like the parent corporation doesn't reflect what that actual station's like. So I think it's all up in the air when it comes to that, and it's really just getting to the station, I think, first before you commit to anything, which I think we talked about that when you were asking me, you know, kind of advice for the first market. I think the biggest thing is going there, being there in person, and meeting the people, because that's the only way you can really, you know, get the vibe. But I would say that as far as corporations go, there's definitely horror stories, but you got to go see it for yourself, I think.
I know. I agree. I love it. All right. You want to switch it up? You want to talk some ball?
Let's talk sports.
All right, let's talk some ball. So we were prepping for this I think we were supposed to do it Monday. So this is going to be funny because game 3, the finals was Sunday. It's like, that's why I watched like prep and I took all my notes. And then there was another game in between that. So it's game 4. Start with the finals. Lakers are up 3-1 on the Heat. I'll let you kind of have the floor first. Like, you want to just go with like what you've seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, so when it was the Celtics Heat, I'm a Celtics fan. I'm from Boston.
So of course, right? Every person ever is from Boston and is diehard.
I mean, I can't. I'm such a spoiled fan with all of my teams, which I love. Yeah. You know, I'll never live that down.
I relish it because literally I was gonna say like I'm wearing my Braves jersey because I've been like diehard Atlanta since 2005, and the Braves have like. And the Braves are like a pretty historically like well-run franchise.
Right. And
the Braves have never we've lost in the DS I think 5 or 6 times and have not made the championship, the NLCS. And this was the first time like in my fandom that we've ever made the NLCS today.
Like,
so I'm over the moon. It feels like a title almost. We're not talking about the Super Bowl. Let's talk finals. Or like, okay, you go on the finals.
All right, that's fine. So unfortunately though, so I mentioned the Celtics because I really liked watching that series. Just the energy. There's so many young players in the NBA right now, especially, I mean, with the Heat, you have Tyler.
Right.
Also on the Celtics, we have young players. So that was an exciting series to watch. I wanted the Celtics to win. They didn't, whatever, that's fine.
Right.
But now I'm totally rooting for the Heat. But also I root for the underdogs. Like I think most people do unless you're a Laker fan.
I agree. Or a LeBron fan in this case too.
Or a LeBron fan, which that's a whole nother realm. Don't get me started on LeBron. I'm such a hater. It's bad. But I think, you know, this game 5, Jimmy Butler would have to play a perfect game, and Bam would have
which he did in game 3. Like he played a perfect game in game 3, and they still almost like didn't win.
They still almost didn't win. So much is on his shoulders. So I give so much credit to that guy. He is one of the best players, you know, right now. And when you look at the floor, it's like the Lakers obviously have the upper hand. Like I said, the Heat are underdogs, but you have LeBron James, you have AD, you have, you know, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, you have Danny Green, you have these guys who everyone knows are good. And when you look at the Heat, you're like, well, I know Tyler Hero's name because he's going off and he's the youngest to do it, you know.
Right, but he's a rookie still. So it's like when you're looking at the floor, you're looking at the roster, the Lakers obviously have the upper hand. So when it comes to Game 5 and you look at the past games, the Heat has, you know, been up there with them. They've started off strong. I always say if they could have 4 quarters of what they play in the first quarter, they could win. They could be serious contenders. If they were all healthy, obviously they could be serious contenders. But right now, I don't see them taking it. Like I said, I think Jimmy would have to have a perfect game. Bam would have to have a close to perfect game. And LeBron and AD would have to be really off, I think. Right. Yeah, and that's how, like, it was in Game 3. What I've been impressed with, because I was actually, like, the Heat coming in, because, all right, I'm a LeBron guy. I'm a LeBron guy because my team's the Hawks. Because my team's the Hawks. And
interesting.
Well, LeBron won a title with Cleveland, so there's your underdog thing. But anyway, so I'm a huge LeBron guy, so I, like, wanted the Lakers to win. And I've also, like, being a Hawks fan, I kind of, like, hate the Heat because it's, like, division and stuff like that. The Heat and the Celtics are literally probably my 2 least favorite teams in the NBA. Because I have to hate.
I'm here like I love them, and you're like, yeah, whatever.
I have to hate being an Atlanta fan. Like I have to hate Boston. So,
I get that.
Because they had some awesome series like end of last decade, going like 08, 09, like through 12 with like the Pierce, Allen Garnett, and like Joe Johnson, Horford, Josh Smith. But anyway, so the Heat coming in, I thought Lakers in 6, and I knew it was going to be tight. Spoelstra, like he's had the rep of being one of the best coaches. Like he's been a maestro these playoffs. Like what he did against even every single round, like they ripped the Bucks. Like that's even like Giannis hurt, whatever, it was over. Like it was over. And then they go in Boston, and like Brad Stevens is obviously no slouch. And like Spoelstra, I think like that might have been it, because the games were all like relatively tight, and then the Heat would just be better in the crunch moments. And Spoelstra came in, and his coaching's been so impressive because the Dragic injuries and the Bam injuries were huge. Yeah. Like Dragic would have given the Lakers trouble based on like the guard matchups.
100%, yeah, everything. I mean, he was averaging 20 points, assists, rebounds.
And he hadn't played at this level in years, and all of a sudden it's like, and that's the thing with the Heat, because they're like a 5 seed, but it's like, okay, they have 4 players who've like taken this leap like in the offseason, like before the bubble, and they're a completely different team. Like they were the best team in the East. Right. And so I thought Lakers in 6, and then the injuries come, you're like, this could be a sweep. And I actually thought that he would come out better in Game 2, like they did in Game 3, because Spoelstra is that good, and because the Lakers have had a tendency to kind of be like lackadaisical when they're in control of a series. And I mean, LeBron was ridiculous in Game 2. He went 33, 9 and 9, no turnovers. And then that was the first game with the injuries. Game 3 comes back, and I actually thought about this before because I told my dad to bet on the Heat like first quarter and stuff like that because I thought they'd come out stronger. The Game 2 was where Spoelstra kind of had to like make the adjustments to the injuries. Yeah. And then Game 3 is kind of where that you saw it on display, and like Butler was unbelievable, like 40-point triple-double, and Davis got in foul trouble. LeBron he had 25, 8 and 8, but 8 turnovers. Right. And I think
that's the thing though. Like you have to have them not have great games, and I don't know. I mean, that's my thought. But when you best on the court and not have a good game, I think that's fair. That it would have to be the same circumstances, I think, for them to win the next one for the Heat too. Right,
and like I think it's just like as you have Dragic and Bam hurt, you have Tyler Hero, who he's been phenomenal, and he's taken a huge leap, like regular season 1 to like bubble and then playoffs. Yeah. He's still a rookie, and he's like you can just see the bigger load that he's having to bear, and I just think the Heat like needed like kind of everything to go right, like to win the series. And even that Game 4 though, because LeBron and Davis were still really off in that first half, and you're like, is this really gonna go 2-2? And then like second half comes, and you could kind of tell LeBron like hit that one deep 3 early third quarter, and he was in control like the rest of the game, and it was kind of like, all right, like enough of this crap, like here we go.
Well, that's the thing, is that's what it comes down to. He can do that. He can have a really shitty game, but when it comes to that fourth quarter, because he's such a presence. Like he can just barrel through you. If his shot's not on that night, he's gonna take it to the basket. And I mean, here's my hater coming out, but the refs are going to be in his favor when it comes to that. They're not gonna call his fouls. They're definitely going to call every touch that comes upon his body.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So he's helped. Don't get me started. But but you know what I mean? It's like he turns it on when he has to, and that's where his consistency comes. Even if he's not consistent in terms of scoring that game, he's consistent year round and having to turn it up and turning it up when he has to, you know?
Well, and that was what was surprising about, like, because he had the bad game 3, which I think if you look back the track record for the Lakers these playoffs, like every time they've been like in control of a series or even coming into a series against a team they just didn't respect that much, they kind of just like didn't bring it. And so game 3 was a little bit predictable in that sense. Then the first half of game 4, it was the same thing where you kind of thought like, because in game 4 against the Nuggets it was 2-1 and they put him to the sword like that. And that's kind of what you were thinking, even with Bam back and Butler talking how he was talking at the end of game 3. Yeah. And game 4 comes around, it's halftime, you're like, all right, this is still weird. Like LeBron and Davis are still off. And then LeBron comes out and like kind of like flips the switch and takes control, which is insane. And like you look at his like profile. I was listening to another show today. They're just talking about this. Like he just never really has like a bad game in the finals. Like hasn't for like years. And like a bad game for him is 25, 8, and 8 with 8 turnovers.
Oh, dude, I was just looking at his stats from the finals. He was like number 1 in minutes played and points.
Right.
I think he was 1 or 2 in rebounds. It was like a long ass list.
Right.
That's why you can never have it. You can't really win an argument if you're a LeBron hater, just because like the talent is obvious. Like he is one of the best. I think the argument that's fun to have is I've been watching The Last Dance like for the third time.
Of course.
And I think like that argument of like who's the GOAT, I think that's a more interesting argument to have. Like obviously LeBron's one of the best, yes.
Right. But it's objective at this point. It's
objective, but also the game has changed so much.
Absolutely.
You looked at the bad boy Pistons in the late 80s, early 90s. That game
I love those teams. I love those teams.
But I do too, but that's day and night.
Exactly.
If they played 10% of the physicality that they played in those games, first of all, LeBron would be on the floor crying like a baby.
Like Lambeer. You imagine him going at Lambeer and Lambeer just like throws an elbow at him and takes him out.
But, but that's the thing. Mm-hmm. Michael Jordan got right back up. He fed on that. And I think that's what, there's so many factors that go into when you're talking about the greatest of all time, like presence and leadership. Mm-hmm. LeBron has that for sure. But I think grit is a huge part of it. Yeah. And I don't know. I hate to see him walking out of the game with 10 seconds left to go. Yeah. You're gonna walk out on your
so theatrical. It's just crazy. What? Like he's so theatrical. Where like after just a game like that, where he's just pissed, probably himself, pissed at his teammates because no one really brought it. Like pissed that Butler just kind of gave it to him that whole game, and it's just so funny.
Like in my eyes, like he's obviously a leader, whatever. But in that case, it's like you really would do that? You're just gonna walk out and you're going to yell at refs and bitch at refs and stay back and not get back on defense because you missed a shot and didn't get a call. Right. Like, like he's almost too good to have anything not go his way. And I think that's the only thing that pisses me off about him. But the guy's he's amazing. He'll definitely bring his team, to win this series, and I'll be sad, but it's fine.
Well, I think what's also amazing about this series and why I kind of wish, like, as much as I want to see LeBron get number 4, I kind of wish this was like a healthier series because like Spoelstra's like the defense that in both these teams too, because Vogel's a defensive coach. Like, you read the stuff about the Lakers, like buying into his system all year. And with like their rotations have been crazy. Davis is obviously a freak. Like Davis, I mean, he probably should have won Defensive Player of the Year. Just it's a regular season award, but when you look in the playoffs, it's like no one is better than this guy on that end. Yeah. But the Heat too, the rotations that Spoelstra has, and just the different looks. And they have like Butler, Crowder, Iguodala, and then like even Bam can switch on to LeBron. So they have 4. Like that's the recipe. You got to have guys you can throw at LeBron. They have 4. And I think that like I've just been so impressed with the Heat defense because like LeBron's had to work super hard, and no team that he played before this in like in the west side of the bracket was able to like make him work like this and challenge him. And the Heat just like have switched up their looks and their rotations. And again, they have freaking Bam Adebayo, who's in this, like, these guys have never really done anything. Mm-hmm. And here they are in the finals. Like, they've hung, like, there's game 1 was a blowout. The other game 2 was kind of just like, I don't know. It just felt weird. It was a weird game because the Heat were adjusting to not having those 2 guys. But games 3 and 4 were both super tight. And I was just like, this man Spoelstra is just insane. And like, I think you just have to give him so much credit. Even though they might lose, knowing LeBron, they'll probably lose tomorrow night. They still might, if not, they'll lose in 6. Like, this is not going 7. But, like, this team is just so – they came out of nowhere, too. I mean, it's a 5 seed in the finals. And it's just like, oh, my goodness. Right. How they're playing is just insane.
It's exciting. They're such an exciting team to watch, and they do adapt, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's their strong suit. Like, you have Kelly Olynyk come in, and he's such a different player than Bam, and the fact that he can shoot the threes, and, you know, Bam's obviously stronger at the rim, but the fact that they can still hold the Lakers and have 2 of the biggest injuries that they could have faced, they had, and they still pulled through. That's why, oh my God, I would love to see them take it, but they won't.
That 3-1. I don't think.
I don't know. I'm being such
You're just holding out hope. You're just holding out hope.
I'm being a bad pseudo fan. I'm just like, I'm being a bad pseudo fan. So
Florida, you could just blame the Florida connection, right? You're in Gainesville, Miami, Florida. It's close enough, right?
Okay, exactly. I'll take that then.
That's so funny. I know. So we'll see. I don't know. I would be just having seen LeBron and how he plays his closeout games. And I don't think he wants any kind of like possible momentum going the other way. So I would expect the Lakers to close out tomorrow. But I mean, the Heat aren't going to lie down. Unlike, I feel like Houston, once it was even like 2-1 in that series, Houston was kind of like done. And Denver, like once they got down in the second half of Game 4 and they kind of were done. And LeBron Game 5 was unbelievable. But this Heat team they're not going to roll over, and they're probably going to be in the game for a while. But they don't have the horses right now. So I think we'll see it tomorrow, but if not, we'll see it, I guess that'll be Sunday.
I think the big thing, too, is it's not just a Game 5 for LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
It's his legacy is on the line. Like, he needs to take his team. He needs to take his team to win this thing. And also, Kobe's
everything,
passing.
all the narratives.
There's so much to it. There's so much more weight on his shoulders, especially than just it being Game 5. So tomorrow's going to be really exciting.
Did you see they're wearing the Mamba jerseys tomorrow?
Yeah, that's what made me think of it.
Yeah.
Like he's going to get in that mindset. I could see him having a 40-plus game tomorrow.
40-plus game.
Yeah.
Let's close that style.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Good final stuff. All right, let's do a few minutes on NCAA football because you've kind of been like, obviously being in Gainesville. I want to know how much have you gotten to do like on Florida, and like how's it been like early in the college football season when I'm sure like you would know this more than I would like being there, but like there was obviously a ton of like, is this going to be able to happen or not?
Right. That, oh my gosh, here especially. So I come from an ACC school, and sports are big there, especially in Syracuse because there's not much going on in Syracuse. But in terms of conference and now it's conference only, people were totally shook here, especially because Gator football is like
it's a religion.
Everything. It's everything here. Yeah. So when there was a possibility of there being no games, people were actually, I don't even think people thought that was a possibility. Whole time
they just didn't believe it.
I think they were like, that's not going to happen. Like football is going to happen. We're going to have games this season. And obviously that's what happened, and we're looking good. And it's really exciting to watch this team. And I don't have a lot to, for this team specifically, I don't have a lot to compare just because I wasn't watching them last year. I was totally focused on ACC stuff. So it's learning the players and it's learning the team for me right now, which is right now. But so far, I mean, there's only 8 games left, which is just bizarre, like terrible, and I hate it. But so far, people are stoked to have it. The weird thing, though, is with it being 15% capacity or 25% capacity, that people still aren't buying the tickets. And I think it's because they don't want to. There was still like thousands of tickets left, at least for the last game. And I think it's because people don't want to be in the swamp unless it's packed, unless it's like they know
like they want like the whole atmosphere.
They want the whole atmosphere, or else they're going to be like super upset by it, which I don't really understand just because we never really had a packed stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't compare it to much, except when we played Clemson in the home opener. It was like, oh my God, 1 million people.
Right.
And then as the season went on, you could hear a pin drop. But so I think that's been the weird thing for people is just adjusting to the fact that they can't be inside watching the game. And I mean, I played basketball my whole life. I never played football, but I know how it is when there's no one in the stands.
Right.
I think there's two sides to it because you can really think about the game and focus. But if you're not having a good game or you're tired or the team's down, like what pushes you aside from each other? Having those fans is huge. So I can imagine for the players, it's just like a whole nother world. It's weird.
And I think this was like, if we stick with UF here, like this is the best Gator team in years. And like Mullen has kind of, I think Mullen always got, it's seeming like, I feel like he was always fairly criticized at Mississippi State, but like Florida and Mississippi State is a different animal just in terms of like your recruiting resources, like the talent that you can get. And like, I mean, they like, I wrote some like notes down stuff. Like obviously they're playing the conference only schedule and like they haven't really played any like really good teams yet, but I mean, they're number 3 in the country, which is, I think it's the highest they've been in a few years. And like, they have 2 superstars on. I don't know if Kyle Trask, jury's out on him being a superstar, but he's been really good. Kyle Pitts has been like phenomenal, a superstar. And I was watching them for the first time. Who I can't remember who they played this past weekend, but I mean, South Carolina. And I was like, wow, this is the best I've seen Florida look like in a few years.
Yeah, I think that first game people were worried mostly like on the defensive side of things. Offense has just been crazy so far. You mentioned Trask and Pitts. I mean, Pitts has 6 touchdowns already in 2 games. Like, all right.
Ludicrous.
Trask is up there with Heisman talks already behind Trevor Lawrence. Like when you're in the conversation with Trevor Lawrence and he's putting up numbers, I mean, it's hard to compare like just within 2 games, but he's putting up numbers that people are comparing to like Joe Burrow's season last year. So the offense is really exciting. And you mentioned Dan Mullen. It has to be exciting for him because he's an offensive minded coach, you know? And so I think definitely for the first few games, that's been exciting. I just listened to local podcasts and stuff to see what people's takes are since they've been following, you know, for years. And the defense, everyone was like super worried about in the first game. And then, you know, against South Carolina, it was a little better. And also, you have to take in consideration that we have a lot of starters on defense that are out right now. We don't know if it's COVID or injuries. That's another thing Mullen's being heard about. He's being very Belichick about it. He's like buttoned up. He's like, you'll see. You'll find out on Saturday. Everyone's good. I guess there was a kid walking around campus. One of the reporters saw him like in a sling. And so in the presser, they asked Mullen and they were like, is he going to be available for Saturday? Like, obviously not, just wanting him to confirm it. And he was like, no, I don't know. The guys get beat up. You'll have to see on Saturday.
I'm going to give you absolutely nothing.
He wants no one to have the upper hand, which is cool though, you know, like I love that.
Right. That's so funny. And the thing with the offense is that though, like, I think like the defensive numbers are like just naturally going to be like worse than years ago just because of how offense oriented, like every college football team is. And like LSU last year, like they were like one of the greatest college football seasons ever. And you were still thinking like throughout the season, like how good is this defense? And it turns out like, I mean, that's just the nature of the game is that really good teams, like the top teams are going to score or good teams are going to score like 30 plus points a game. It's just like the top offense is going to score 40 plus.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you watch closely and it's different watching like at a bar with your friends, you're not breaking down each play. You're kind of just like, oh, that was a shitty, you know, that was
crap.
I mean, like the pass defense against Ole Miss was really weak. It was better against the Gamecocks. But I think the big thing with them is especially having injured players, the way they recruit is they recruit players who can be really flexible within the positions, which is something I don't think people are really putting much weight on, which is important. You know, they have the talent there. So once the guys are all healthy, I think that will definitely fix things on the defensive side. But like you said, if a team has good offense, that's really all viewers seem to care about. Obviously, the team's a little different.
How do they look aesthetically?
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. They play Texas A&M on Saturday, and that'll definitely be a bigger challenge. You know, they have Mond at quarterback. They have a super strong defense. So I think that'll be the first real test.
Well, they just got the crap.
We'll see if they drop in the standings.
Yeah, because they got the crap. A&M got the crap kicked out of them by Bama this past week. So like, I mean, they're gonna get up. They're gonna get up for this game. I gotta ask, are you gonna go to the Georgia game?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have
That
to.
one,
That's gonna
that
be
one is
huge.
crazy. That was always on my bucket list in college, was to get to one of those weekends at St. Simon. And obviously, like, you'd be covering it, so like, I don't know if you'd be at St. Simon's, but like, that was
Yeah.
always on my bucket list, and we wanted to do it senior year, and it just didn't happen. And like, I am gonna like live vicariously through you on that one, because that weekend is, I'm sure you've heard,
Oh yeah.
it's ludicrous.
Yeah. It's exciting because I never really had like a rivalries type of thing like that.
Right.
In Syracuse, where like we never lost 3 consecutive, championships to any team that I can remember, or at least it wasn't known by everyone. But here, it's like they want blood. It's fun. You can come visit. You can come visit for that weekend.
I love it. I think we're kind of like out of time here.
Are we?
Yeah. I know that flew. So I always do that. We'll do this real quick at the end. Like, plug your stuff. Like, where can we find you? Yeah, where can we find Claudia Bellofatto content?
Well, my Twitter game is getting stronger by the day. I'm trying to keep up with that. That's at CBellofatto TV. My name's hard. People can probably find it, but CLLOFATTO TV. Instagram, Claudia Bellofatto _. Find me on Facebook. Hit me up. I'm actually going to start doing my own podcast, and I'm going to make you come on it. So
all right. I'll return the favor.
Yes. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much. This was fun.
This was a lot of fun, and we'll do this again sometime. 100%.
Cool. We got to put money on this game.
Yes. All right. What are we throwing? I mean, you really don't want to bet me straight up, do you?
No, not really.
Okay, I'll give you. All right, we'll throw.
I do like.
We'll throw
20
a couple.
bucks, 20 bucks.
All right, we'll throw 20, and I'll give you. We'll talk off air about how many points I'm going to give you, but I won't do it straight up. I want to make it fair. We'll talk off air about how many points I want to give you.
Okay, that's fair.
All right, thanks, Claudia.